HSR project still on hold. Government to compensate Singapore. Cops who allow civilians to inspect patrol car in hot soup. Good afternoon and welcome to News on 2. I'm Amin Carlos. Now, first story. The Prime Minister, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, said the high-speed rail or HSR project between Malaysia and Singapore, which was suspended last year, is still on hold pending talks between the two governments. The HSR project was suspended on 5th September last year in a supplementary agreement signed between Economic Affairs Minister Muhammad Azmin Ali and Singapore Transport Minister Khaw Boon Wan.
For the time being, we are not going to build. We asked for 2 years before we begin to talk again about the HSR. At the moment, we have not given out any contract, but we have to compensate Singapore.
The agreement saw the project deferred until 31st May 2020, where if by then Malaysia does not proceed with the project, it will also bear the agreed costs incurred by Singapore in fulfilling the HSR bilateral agreement. In July last year, Singapore said it would seek to recover over 250 million Singapore dollars in costs incurred to date should Malaysia cancel the project.
Well, Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad played down Pakatan Harapan's PH's latest by-election defeat in Ranau last week, saying the result was not unexpected. And stressing that it did not change the balance of power in the state, Tun Dr. Mahathir also said the electorate would on occasion use such polls to express their sentiments as there was little risk involved.
The government, they know whatever happens in the election, whether the government party wins or not, the government remains the same. Except, of course, and in Negeri, I think the government is still at the Pakatan Harapan.
In the by-election last week, acting UMNO President Dr. Sri Muhammad Hassan defeated PH's Dr. S. Sreeram by a majority of 4,510 votes to win the Ranau state seat he has held for the past 15 years. Dr. Sri Muhammad took 10,397 votes to Dr. Sreeram's 5,887, while independent candidates R. Malarvizi and Muhammad Nur Yassin got 83 and 79 votes respectively. Since then, some PH leaders have sought to dismiss views that the PAC's third straight electoral defeat indicated fading support for the coalition that won last year's general election in an upset result.
Now, the police personnel who allowed a patrol car to be stopped and inspected by civilians in front of Chung Hua National Type School or SJKC Ranau Negeri Sembilan last Saturday are in hot soup. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Muhammad Fuzi Harun said it was not proper for police personnel to allow persons who did not have the authority to carry out any form of inspection on enforcement authorities such as the police.
He said that the police personnel should not tolerate nor give in when it comes to matters pertaining to law enforcement.
Di peringkat jabatan kita kami tindakan kerana tidak wajar bagi mereka membenarkan orang awam yang tidak ada apa-apa kuasa untuk buat pemeriksaan kepada pegawai penguatkuasa seperti PDRM ini. Jadi kita akan bertindak tegas kepada mereka kerana mereka tidak boleh bertolak ansur lah dalam isu-isu yang berkait dengan penguatkuasaan undang-undang.
He said this after presenting service medals, the Pingat Jasa Pahlawan, to 331 police personnel at the Malacca Police Headquarters, IPK, in Bukit Beruang yesterday. Tan Sri Muhammad Fuzi said policemen should not allow the public to obstruct them as civil servants from discharging their duties, but netizens disliked their actions and thought it was an outrageous move. He said the policemen, when surrounded by a group of civilians, should have sought help from their colleagues who were close by, as there were 1,100 police personnel on duty on polling day for the Ranau by-election.
Now, the Fire and Rescue Department is temporarily halting its search for Muhammad Ashraf Hassan, 29, who went missing while participating in the Gopeng Ultra Trail 2019 run on 23rd March. The Housing and Local Government Minister Zuraida Kamarudin said the department, which comes under her ministry, took the move to temporarily halt the search for the runner more fondly known as achap, due to calls from the locals.
She said in principle the Perak Fire and Rescue and the police who are involved in the search acceded to the calls by the locals, but tripartite discussions were underway to decide on how long they should halt the mission.
So biarkan kasih sikit masa, I think by tomorrow they can come up with a decision when and how many days. Yeah? So because yang lain tak ada di sini. Okay? Yes, satu side itu kalau dia kena bergantung pada polis kan. Yes. Polis yang bertanggungjawab untuk mengeluarkan arahan untuk perhentian SAR tu. Jadi, tapi of course ada perbincangan lah.
She was met after visiting the command post for the search and operations in Kampung Pintu Padang yesterday. Meanwhile, Muhammad Ashraf's mother, Siti Masna Kamis, 62, said his missing was a big test to the family and thanked all those tirelessly looking for him, describing them as unsung heroes.
Kuala Muda police expose an online gambling syndicate which hides under the guise of food outlets and retail shops, besides using a motorcycle to sell bets or top-ups on the move. Now, police uncovered the syndicate during an operation held in the vicinity of Sungai Petani since January.
Hingga Mac pada 2019 kita telah berjaya membuat tangkapan sebanyak 38 orang premis. Okey. Di bawah section di bawah section 4BA. 4BA atau rumah judi terbuka. Okey. Daripada 38 sebanyak 11 premis yang kita telah membuat pemotongan bekalan elektrik.
Superintendent Azali said this after an operation to cut the electricity power at 3 premises in Taman Jeladi involved in online gambling activities. The premises were used by the syndicate as a space for customers to top up their gambling. All transactions were conducted via WeChat and messaging applications.
Now, police seized 3,200 cartons of cigarettes of various brands during a raid in 3 locations in Seremban. And according to Negeri Sembilan Acting Police Chief Dato' Muhammad Mat Yusof, the cigarettes were seized on Friday, involving seizures worth 478,783 ringgit, including taxes.
The raid was carried out at the Taman Tunku Jafar Industrial Park parking lot and shop lot, as well as a house in Taman Sri Pinang, Labu. 6 men aged between 30s to 50s were detained.
Tangkapan telah dibuat ke atas 6 orang lelaki terdiri daripada 4 lelaki Melayu, 1 lelaki India dan 1 lelaki Cina yang berumur dalam lingkungan 30-an hingga 50-an.
Dato' Mohamad said this yesterday in a press conference in Seremban. All cigarettes are believed to have been meant for local markets amid other states. The suspects were remanded for 12 days since last Saturday until next Wednesday under Section 116, subsection C of the Customs Act 1967. Also seized during the raid were 4 cars, business documents, 2 laptops, 6 mobile phones, checkbooks, bank statements, bank books, and 5,640 ringgit in cash. The case is investigated under Section 135, subsection 1, subsection E of the Customs Act 1967 for the offence of smuggling, which is punishable under Section 135, subsection 1, subsection 3, subsection AA of the same Act, which carries a fine of not less than 10 times the value of goods and no more than 20 times the value of goods, or imprisonment not exceeding 3 years of both.
The Department of Wildlife and National Parks, or Perhilitan, detained 2 illegal Vietnamese poachers suspected of having links to a syndicate which hunts wildlife in Terengganu National Park. And Waterland and Natural Resources Minister Dr. Xavier Jayakumar said both the suspects, aged 25 and 29, were arrested during an operation dubbed Ops Belang.
During the arrest, the suspects were also found with body parts of wild animals, including tigers, bears and wild boars, valued at an estimated 600,000 ringgit. According to Dr. Xavier, 7 packages, 1 gunny sack containing the parts of wild animals, as well as 30 bones were also seized, but they could not identify the types of animals which were caught.
Dia sembunyikan di beberapa tempat di kawasan di mana mereka duduk, di bawah tanah dan ada di bawah kayu dan sebagainya. So saya telah minta pasukan penelitian kita untuk masuk balik di dalam kawasan itu
untuk cari keseluruhan kawasan itu dengan perimeter yang lebih besar.
The suspects are also believed to have trapped at least 2 tigers, 2 panthers, 3 bears and 12 wild boars using wire snares. The suspect duo have been remanded for 3 days from yesterday in Kuala Berang to assist in investigations under the Terengganu National Park Enactment number 39 for trespassing into the national park. They will also be investigated for hunting and storing wildlife without permission from Perhilatan under the Wildlife Conservation Act 2010 and Section 29 Act 716 for possession of snares.
Well, coming up next, 5G test bed report by year-end. Now, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad said he is baffled by some of the government's policies, which, he said, place more emphasis on imported goods and services. So commenting further, the Prime Minister said the taxation system must change to give local businesses and industries the edge over foreign firms, as this will help develop Malaysia's economy further.
We are not even serving our own country. So we will need to change the policy of the government. And this may involve replanning the taxation for particular industries so that more products will be produced locally and we will reduce imports. However, that can be a government policy. We can reduce the taxes, but we can't force the people to buy local things.
The Premier further noted that Malaysians tend to look down on their own achievements and expressed hope that Malaysians would emulate the Japanese in buying their own products.
Malaysians look down upon their own achievements. If you make a car in Malaysia, it must be worse than the imported cars. So you buy imported cars, lots of money go out and we become actually poorer. But we have the skills not only to build trains, even airplanes are being built in Malaysia, parts of them. So our capacity is there.
The Premier said this to reporters at the Technomart 2019 event in Cyberjaya.
So the outlook for railway industry.
Communications and Multimedia Minister Govan Singh said the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, MCMC, will prepare the final report on the 5G testbed and trials by the end of this year. While he also said the outcome of the trials from April to October this year would be presented to the government and that the initiative was to ensure that the country was ready for the implementation of the high-speed network and technology.
Selepas daripada ini, saya difahamkan bahawa satu laporan akan dikeluarkan berkaitan dengan hasil daripada test bidding ini, di mana kita ada kelemahan, di mana kita ada kekuatan dan sebagainya, apa yang seharusnya dilaksanakan oleh kerajaan supaya kita boleh memastikan bahawa negara kita ini bersedia untuk kita ini melangkah masuk ke era 5G, especially with IR 4.0 around. I think it's important that we have infrastructure that's ready, but this is something that MCMC will report to us.
The Minister further noted that a testbed launched to showcase 5G will take place on 18th April and is scheduled to be officiated by the Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. Govan said this after a site visit at the 5G Malaysia Showcase at Putrajaya Corporation yesterday. The 5G Task Force, which was established last year, currently has 108 members from various sectors within the industry, including telcos, businesses, educational institutions, related government agencies, and infrastructure vendors. On another note, Govan said his ministry is currently undergoing a process of restructuring and improving several departments and agencies to improve its services and delivery system to the Rakyat. He noted that the ministry is currently restructuring the information department and improving the services of Radio Television Malaysia, RTM, and Malaysia National News Agency, Bernama.
We are doing our best as far as the government is concerned, KKMM is concerned. We are in the process of restructuring penerangan. We are also in the process of trying to improve services in RTM and Bernama. I think you can see some improvements made in the last couple of months. But this is something that will take time. It's a process that has to take place. At the end of the day, I think we have done well, and I think there's a lot more to do. We can improve, and of course, we'll endeavour to do our best to improve in the months to come.
The minister said this to reporters after presenting the Excellent Services Awards APC to 612 recipients in Putrajaya.
Foreign Minister Dato' Saifuddin Abdullah said Malaysia is hopeful that Singapore will agree to enter into negotiations on the second phase of the 1962 water agreement, which involves the price modality. And stressing that the next phase would be a difficult one, he said Singapore is not refusing to discuss the price modality, but will find it is something delicate to discuss.
If talks and negotiations cannot work, then we may have to go to the other stage, which is to go to international arbitration. But arbitration means both sides have to agree lah.
Dato' Saifuddin said this to reporters after officiating the international seminar on global issues at University Technology Malaysia, Skudai, yesterday. He was responding to a question on how the arbitration would work with Malaysia and Singapore, mulling arbitration as a way to resolve the long-standing water issue between the two countries. At the 9th Malaysia-Singapore Leaders Retreat in Putrajaya last week, Malaysia and Singapore agreed to consider arbitration as a way to resolve the water agreement issue. The agreement, which will expire in 2061, states that Singapore may draw 250 million gallons of raw water from Sungai Johor daily at 3 cents per 1,000 gallons, and in return, Johor is entitled to receive a daily supply of up to 5 million gallons of treated water, or 2% of the water supplied to Singapore at 50 cents per 1,000 gallons. Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad has repeatedly said previously that Malaysia is selling water to Singapore at too low a price and that it should be raised.
Well, on another matter, Dato' Saifuddin said traffic congestion at the Johor Causeway has been a matter of serious discussion, and a clearer picture of what will be done will be obtained in about 6 months. Well, he said discussions to resolve the issue are crucial to more than 265,000 people who commute back and forth between Malaysia and Singapore.
Dato' Saifuddin said the congestion at the two doors linking Malaysia and Singapore are certainly recognized by the two governments.
This is the first time kita bawa isu congestion ini, dan kedua-dua Prime Minister dan menteri-menteri yang terlibat mudah aja faham masalah ini. And I must give credit to the Johor State Government because they have done their survey, dan itu memudahkan untuk kita bincang.
In addition, he said a short-term solution has been implemented in the form of additional counters at immigration. However, this solution is limited by the narrow space available in the building. Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad reiterated that the solution of traffic congestion at the entrance of the Malaysia-Singapore Causeway is currently a priority of the government.
And any implementation of infrastructure projects in Malaysia in the future, especially those on a large scale, will be carried out through an open tender process. Deputy Minister of International Trade and Industry, MITI, Dr. Ong Kian Ming, said this is in line with the aspirations of the government to avoid any biased results in favor of companies from any particular country.
According to Dr. Ong, while the China Communications Construction Company, CCCC, was directly selected to handle the ECRL project, Malaysia will not implement a policy of bias against any of the companies from China in the future. Moreover, he said all infrastructure companies from any country are eligible and welcome to bid for the tender of a project in Malaysia. Dr. Ong said this to reporters after delivering a keynote address at a seminar titled PM Revisits China, Expectation and Opportunities, organized by the Malaysia-China Chamber of Commerce in Kuala Lumpur. The seminar was organized to discuss efforts to attract foreign investments into the country through the Second Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation in Beijing, which will be attended by Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad later this month.
The French ambassador to Malaysia, Frédéric Leplanche, said it was a common interest of the European Union, or EU, to find a positive outcome on the issue of unfair and discriminatory practices against palm oil. Now, Malaysia at the moment may continue to suspend free trade agreement, or FTA, talks with the European Union, the EU, and the European Free Trade Association, or EFTA, until the issue is resolved.
Are doing at the moment is having a very strong and important debate with the government of Malaysia to see how things can evolve in the future. And I'm very reassured by the fact that the government of Malaysia is taking a balanced and very active policy on the subject. On the one hand, promoting palm oil as a commodity, and at the same time promoting more sustainability, more environmental protection within the plantation, within the palm oil industry.
He said this at the EU-Malaysia Trade and Investment Forum 2019 held at the federal capital yesterday. Meanwhile, EU-Malaysia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, EU-MCCI Chief Executive Officer Roberto Banatello is also hopeful of the resumption of the talks. He added that some of the studies that the EU has done are being examined to prove the effectiveness of a possible FTA between Malaysia and EU.
First 2015 FA Cup winners, Kedah, march into the last 8 after beating PJ City FC 2-0 at the Darul Aman Stadium last night.
Kedah took an early second-minute lead through Brazilian import Renan da Silva Alves, much to the delight of the home crowd. The hosts nearly doubled their lead in the 25th minute, but Jonathan Bowman failed to secure the much-needed advantage. It remained 1-0 in favour of Kedah coming into the interval. National skipper Muhammad Zakwan Atta Abdul Razak eventually doubled the score to confirm the Red Eagles' place in the quarterfinals.
And with that, we conclude this afternoon's News on 2. In our top story, cops who allowed civilians to inspect patrol car in hot soup. Now join us again at 7 this evening. I'm Mohammed Amin Carlos. Thanks for watching.